I'm always working with a mentor or a coach at some level.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello. My name is ALLi Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Jo is interviewing Karen Williams. Karen is a previous guest, so it was great to reconnect and get an update on how Karen's business has changed since we last spoke with her. Karen is one of the leading book mentors in the UK. She works with business experts who want to stand out from the crowd and write a non-fiction book that helps them to grow their business, raise their credibility and get more clients. The best-selling author of 6 books herself, she knows the difference a book can make to your business when done well. Back to the studio.
So today I'm interviewing Karen Williams of Librotas. Welcome, Karen. Thanks for joining me for a second time. You're one of our returners, aren't you?
I am indeed, Jo. It's lovely to see you again.
So we've just been looking back. I think I said it was something like number 46, which I think was probably 2016. So probably a fair bit has changed since then, including the format of the interview. I was a bit more structured and I forced you to answer all my questions last time. It's not quite the same now.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being grilled, or just ask me anything you like.
Lovely. So start by telling us who you are, what you do and where you do it.
Okay, so I am the book mentor. As you said, Jo, my company's Librotas, and I never started out as the book mentor. I started out my journey as a coach back in 2006, and I trained as a coach. I set up my own business, and in 2009 I wrote my first book. And we met probably, it must have been around about 2010, 2011. It was quite those early days, I think. Mm-hmm. And I went on to write a second one, even though I said never again. And I've written 6 now. So that's one thing that has changed in the last few years, Jo. So I've written 6 books. And since 2014, I've been supporting business owners who want to write a credibility and authority building book. So taking them through the whole process from I'd love to write a book, I'm not sure what to do, I don't know where to start, through to having a copy of their book in their hands. So I work with a great team who do the editing, the publishing. But for me, it's about helping them to get their ideas out of their head in the best possible way, but also ensuring that they build their business from their book. It's not just about having a shiny book in their hand, but it's about writing a book that builds their credibility, that puts them on stage, that gets them showing up in a bigger way. And that's pretty much what I do on a day-to-day basis. I'm on the lovely south coast of the UK in Portsmouth.
I'm sure you must have told me that last time, but I had no concept of where you were when we were talking. So is it raining there like it is here now?
Oh, it's absolutely pouring down today. It's horrible.
Good old Channel. I don't know. There we go. So, okay, interesting. So you said you wrote your first book and said you'd never write one again, and now you're right in the thick of helping other people to do it. So tell us a bit about that transition, because so many people have probably thought about writing a book and then immediately dismissed it. Some people have thought about writing a book, written one as you did, and said they weren't going to do it again. I don't suppose many people have then gone on to write more and gone on to start teaching it. So tell me how that happened.
Yeah, how did it happen? Gosh, I love writing. I will be honest with you, I do absolutely love writing. I'd actually written a manuscript before I'd actually written that first book in 2009, but I dismissed it. It wasn't good enough. I didn't want to share it. I haven't got a clue where it is now, actually. It's probably on an old laptop somewhere. But I do love writing and I do love reading. But it was 2014 that I was working, the first book really put me and my business on the map, and I started working with coaches who were in the early stages of running a business. And I found through working with them, it was around about 2014, a lot of them wanted, they were seeing some of my success with my books and they wanted help to do it. And initially I said, no, I don't know enough. And all of those sorts of things went through my mind. But then I actually realized what I love to do is help people to see the diamonds, the gems in what they have to say. When you get so close to it yourself, you don't necessarily see the value of what you can offer. And what I love doing is helping people to get the ideas out of their head, the structure, the planning, seeing it develop, give them feedback on their writing. For me, that is kind of my superpower, really, the thing I love to do. And that was the transition. And then over the last 6 years, I've seen my clients, those who have really put, 100% into their book, they've achieved some amazing successes, finalists in the book awards, the business book awards, speaking engagements, sponsorship. One recently, she was, I think she was voted one of the top email marketing books. Her book was that she published a year or so ago. And absolutely, it's amazing seeing their successes. And that's why I do what I do, is just helping people to get their ideas out of their head in the best possible way. But so they write a book that really does build their credibility.
Yes, yeah. And I can see as well, to begin with, how helping other people to write their book actually gives you all of the joy of the stuff that you love without the sort of stress of having to produce the book yourself at the end of it as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, but I did model myself. My third book was Your Book is a Hook, and I modelled my process, and that's really how that book came about. And obviously it's evolved, it's developed. Becoming an Authority was my sixth one, which I did last year, and that is really the evolvement of what I've learned since 2014 when I wrote Your Book is a Hook, because things have changed and things have evolved hugely. And because I've made a lot of the mistakes myself, Jo, I know what mistakes for clients not to make as well. So I can say, so for example, during lockdown, I created my my signature system, the Smart Author system, which went online around about April time. And one of the ladies on that program the other day was saying that I'm really stuck with my title. And for me, I can actually say to her, look, don't worry about your title yet. It's okay. And actually, if you keep worrying about your title, it was sent with loving kindness. If you worry about your title, you're never going to write your book. So it was very much sent in that very gentle way. But also, for me, I probably made every single mistake when I was writing my first couple of books. So I know what the pitfalls are, and also, how you can get some quick wins as well.
Yes, yeah. No, I love that process. When I think. In some ways, I sometimes get frustrated with myself having to do things thoroughly before I teach it to other people. Sort of slows me down.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that value you have of having, like you said, you wrote your book about the process. You couldn't have done that if you hadn't been through the process yourself. And as you say, you need to have sort of had all those potential issues and pitfalls and so on for it to be, so valuable. Nobody wants to learn from someone who's done it brilliantly all along, do they, I suppose?
No, and I also find with my clients that because when they write their book, they immerse themselves in their own process, is they get to know themselves on a deeper level. So they don't have to have everything perfect as they write it. Because, for example, if they already have a signature system, they probably will find as they sort of, this is chapter 1, this is chapter 2, etc. But they do more research. They get to understand themselves on a deeper level. They go to clients and go, okay, so I'd love to use you as a case study, and they get to know how they do themselves on a much deeper level. So actually that helps them to develop and grow as they write it.
Mm-hmm. So all sorts of reasons why it's really key for people. Why do you think people don't write books, even though they think it's a good idea or it seems like something that they ought to be doing? Why do they not do it?
Pretty much time. The perception that it's going to take a lot of time. I think it feels overwhelming if you think, I need to write a 55,000 word book. That feels like quite a big task. So whenever I work with clients, we break it down into chunks, we break it into chapters. So it's easier to say, okay, so within the next month, you're going to produce maybe a chapter and a half or 2 chapters. Feels a little bit easier than saying, I'm going to write a book in 6 months. So I think time, but actually, in my view, when you've got a really good plan, which is, basically there's 10 steps or 10 principles that I teach, and writing the book doesn't come till principle number 5. It's all the planning that takes place right at the very beginning, which makes it easier to write. But people don't realise that, they might start to write their book, they might, come across a block, and then they go, I can't do it. But actually, when you've got a really good plan, the time doesn't necessarily matter, because if you have half a day a week, you could still write it in 6 months. So time is probably the biggest barrier, and then just not knowing where to start is the other one. It just feels a bit overwhelming, and it's easier to procrastinate and never do it.
Yes, yeah. So how do you encourage them to organise their time to do that? I mean, you just talked about, just doing a small bit every day or whatever. Is it about personality? Do you have different routes for different people?
Well, there is no one size fits all, to be honest, because everyone's different. So if I said to you, Jo, get up at 5 o'clock every morning and write for an hour a day, what would you say?
You know me, I don't do 5 o'clocks.
Nor do I. And there's some people teach, you should write every day. Some people say, go away and write it. But there is no one size fits all. With all of my clients, I find out what works for them. So for me, I wrote my last book by taking myself away for a few days. And I wrote about 22,000 words in 3 days because I prepared myself. I had all my food. I was away from anybody else, any distraction. So I got a lot of words done. And that won't work for everybody, because some might go away and then they go, I don't know what to write. And then they waste the time. So for me, it's about helping people to decide when they write at their best, how do they write at their best? What do they need to have with them? So there is never one size fits all. So it's about knowing the different types of people. I've had some clients who love getting up at 5 a.m. and writing. That's not me. And it's obviously not you either. So it's really sort of playing to people's strengths in terms of how they do them. I think once you've got a plan, it makes it easier. But every client I work with is different.
I am liking the idea of going away somewhere on my own for a few days with some food, but maybe that's just to do that and not write a book.
Well, I do run, apart from this year, luckily, with COVID-19 and everything, I've been running a writing retreat in Spain since 2014, and we made the decision last year to take a break this year, which is probably a good thing, but hoping might go back to Spain again in 2021. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Yeah, it's great place to write, blog,
Yeah.
chill, have a glass of wine.
Yes, exactly. Lovely. So tell us a bit about what your days look like, and they've changed, haven't they, because you've now gone on to working online since the pandemic. So things have changed for you, particularly recently, and also since we last spoke. So what do those days look like? How do you work with your clients?
Well, actually, things haven't changed a huge amount, in as much as I've been using Zoom technology for years. So a lot of my stuff is done virtually. But what I have found, obviously, with lockdown is, if I was spending a planning day with a client, we'd have to do it virtually. But I did do my first planning day physically, face-to-face, last week, which was amazing. I went back to networking last week, outside networking, walking. Luckily, we managed to avoid the rain. But actually, most of the stuff I do from my home office, where I use Zoom, I use Skype, I use technology to work with my clients. So things haven't changed a huge amount. I am naturally an introvert. I'm naturally happy being by myself, although I've got a virtual team I work with. Not much has changed, really. I just get out a little bit less than I did before.
Mm-hmm. So you talked before we came on about, and I think you mentioned at the beginning about your signature program and it being online and so on. Was that part of that transition into the pandemic, or was it something you'd been planning already? I'm just interested in sort of how that came about and how quickly you had to do it, because a lot of people were sort of scrabbling around, weren't they, trying to pull things together at the beginning of this period.
It's funny you asked, because it was on the plan. I wasn't planning on doing it quite so quickly. So I've been working with a colleague of mine, Mark, since we met. We've known each other for about 10 years. We've worked together in the past, and we met up, must have been about October, November time last year, and we started talking about putting my signature program online. When I got back, I went for a ski trip early March. As soon as I came back, we were working 12, 16-hour days to do it, and we got it from idea to launch in about 6 weeks. So it was on my plan for this sort of kind of spring, summertime, but we just ramped it up and did it quite quickly. So the thing about it is that there's a free masterclass that people can sign up to on my website, which tells people a bit about it. So we put that together. He's a marketing copy expert, and he's also really great at technology. So actually helping me to put everything together was really helpful. And then with the program, we launched it, and I just needed to be a week ahead of my clients. I had everything planned. I've been teaching this stuff for 6 years, so I knew exactly what I was covering. But in terms of actually launching it and delivering it, I very much believe in building the plane as you fly it. You can create a bright, shiny program and then try and promote it and then try and sort of, publicize it, but nobody might want it. But the thing about creating it and launching it before you've actually finished creating it is quite scary, but it's quite exciting as well, in terms of you can adapt it to the feedback you get, and it's something that's always going to be evolving and growing as well.
Yes, yeah. Have you found that people have been more receptive to it because it's online at the current time, or do you think people were getting more towards that anyway? I mean, it does feel like we kept talking about the future of work and how technology was going to be the big thing in the future. Then all of a sudden it was here. But I do know in the sort of online coaching, in the coaching world, online, since we've been in contact, online has always been a thing anyway. So I'm not sure for some of the people like us, it was such a big difference. But do you think there's a sort of appetite that's gone up because people have got more time? And I didn't have any more time. Didn't sound like you did.
No, I didn't. I've been working my socks off. I think for me, I wanted to give people the option. I know that I can only work, because I work quite intensively with my one-to-one clients. I can't work with a huge number of people at any one time. And I also knew that the pandemic, or my belief was, and it has been, and it's been very true actually, is that as people have gone through the pandemic and coming through the other side, they know that to stand out, that they need to write a book, that it's going to help them to build their business, it's going to help them to stand out. So there's definitely more people who are doing it now than they ever were before. And I wanted to give people options, but I also wanted to create a program that wasn't just about online delivery. So for example, I've been running Make It Happen days, which are online days via Zoom to help people to write their books. Probably myself and a colleague, we started it a couple of years ago. So it made sense to have that as part of the program. It made sense to have a one-to-one with me as part of the program. Facebook community. So it's really about how I could add more value to people that was going to be more affordable, especially at the moment, because there's a lot of uncertainty going forward. So that was one of the reasons for doing it. And just being able to reach more people and get the message out there. The fact it doesn't have to be difficult to write a book.
No. And I like the fact that it's not so much that people have had more time, but more that they've understood the importance of standing out and sort of using those opportunities that perhaps weren't needed before, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So how do you work, and how do you encourage? I mean, you said when people are writing their books, it's all sort of individual based. What sort of tools and apps are you using and suggesting other people use?
Well, I've been using a CRM, customer relationship management system, called Less Annoying, which is a bit annoying sometimes, but Less Annoying CRM, I've been using that for years. That helps me to manage my day. It links to my calendar. It's brilliant. And it links to, and I can also sort of keep in touch with prospective clients, and it does all sorts of things. It helps me to manage my business. The only thing that's slightly annoying is it doesn't link to some of the other systems that I use, but as a management tool, it's brilliant.
You've got a tool that's called Less Annoying, that you're calling it slightly annoying.
Slightly annoying. But generally it's okay, it's quite good. I love the calendar apps where people can book directly into my diary. So I use You Can Book Me. There's all sorts out there. I think they're brilliant, because instead of going backwards and forwards and trying to put dates in diary and times, you can just send people a link and it automatically links to Google Calendar. I love that. But the thing that I really love at the moment is Mark, my colleague. He introduced me to Kartra. So I've been using Kartra for my online program, which means, so before Kartra, I had Thinkific for some of my legacy online programs. I had, what else did I have? I had Infusionsoft or Keep for my email marketing. I had, Squeezepage software. I had all sorts of things. And now I've got one system that does everything. And discovering Kartra was like a real game changer for me earlier this year. So that is something that's not annoying. Well, I don't know, has its moments.
but it is Kartra with a K, and people might not think that.
Kartra with a K, yeah. I really love it because it does so much more than, it really helps me to keep an eye on what's going on. And for me, I love technology, so I think that helps. I think I do come across people, when it comes to sort of the online world, they don't like technology, or it feels a bit scary. I've always embraced technology, so to learn from someone and to learn a new system doesn't faze me too much, but I know it can faze some people.
Yes. Do you think that sort of came along at a sort of good time in your development? I'm sort of asking because you and I have been around for quite a while in this world, and in this space, and a bit like you were saying, I had this software and it linked to that, and I had to do that and everything else. I've just sort of realized in the last sort of 6 months or a year that I'm really going back to basics in terms of the stuff that I knew right at the beginning, and sort of almost tidying up everything, getting everything reconnected in the right way without all the sort of loose ends and the legacy stuff. And I mean, I'm not doing it with an integrated tool like you are, but it sounds like that might have been a bit of a relief to sort of go, right, now I've done all this, I've learnt it all for many years, and now I'm going to start again with all of that knowledge behind me and sort it all out.
Yeah, no, that has been a relief, definitely. But yeah, we both been in the nicest possible way, been around a while. I did teleclasses when teleclasses were a thing, before webinars really became a thing. And I think being able to embrace technology and also being willing to, and knowing what different things can do to help or to hinder a business is quite useful to know as well, because you can go, well, I don't want that because, but actually I do want this because. So you can learn from what the tools other people are using and work out what works for you.
Yes.
And also I was born in the 70s, early 70s. So technology, when I was at school, I learned on I learned to type on a proper typewriter. And I think these days with the youngsters, is that obviously they have technology from being a teenager, which I didn't really have that much. Probably early 20s before I sort of really went from an Amstrad, remember those, through to having one of those really big boxy computers in the lounge. So it's interesting how things have evolved, and how technology and how we rely on technology now that we've necessarily. Could you imagine what it'd be like if we were running a business 20 years ago, and how different it would have been?
Yes. Yeah. So true. But it's also interesting. I've said for many years that I think people like Apple have done a big disservice to many people by making things supposedly so intuitive that you don't really get instructions on how to do stuff. And iPhones are a great example that, you can pick them up and use them quite easily without knowing anything really. My mother-in-law at 76 being a great example, she uses her phone extensively but doesn't really understand what's going on. But there's loads of stuff that you could know that are sort of, there's loads I don't know with my iPhone, for example, because I don't know it exists, so I don't know how to do it. And then somebody tells you that there's a new whizzy way of doing something, and then you think, why didn't I know that before? And it's interesting, I've been doing some work most recently with students who are new to sort of internet marketing, but actually what I've discovered increasingly is that their basic technical skills are really poor, and that, to be fair, they're sort of a little bit older than us, so they were even sort of further back in the terms of the development of the tech stuff. But even things like sort of copying and pasting, or undoing things, or typing into the browser rather than in the Google window and things like that, just they don't know about it, because of course no one's taught that, because there wasn't ever really a lesson learning how to browse the internet.
No, that's very true, isn't it? For me, it's just something I've learned as I've gone, as I've kind of experimented, and as I've learned how to do things. And then you see someone doing it a different way and go, oh, I didn't know that. Or you learn from other people.
Yeah, or I will say one of my superpowers is Googling. If I don't know how to do something, I'll Google it and find out. And I always think there must be a better way to do this, or an easier way, or whatever. And the amount of people who must muddle through just doing what they can just about do, and it must take twice as long or 5 times as long, and be even more frustrating. But somewhere on the line, we didn't remember to tell everybody that all these things are possible. It's really quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm all for outsourcing as well. I've been working with my VA for the last sort of 10, 11, 12 years now. So I also know that there's other people who can do things better than I can. So I do a lot of the tech stuff myself, but being able to outsource. So one of my clients recently, she's in the early stages of writing her book, and she wanted to set up her mailing list. So I recommended her to somebody that I knew who could do that. And sometimes it's so much quicker to outsource something to someone who could set it up for you, then teach you how to use it. So that's another thing to think about. If technology is not your thing, if you can pay someone to do it who can do it in half the time, a quarter of the time, and you can get on and do what you enjoy, why not? In my view.
Yeah, completely. I think that's a big part of it as well. I think often people sort of outsource if they don't know how to do something, because is the obvious thing. They don't always outsource because they don't want to do something. It feels, I don't know, wasteful or a bit lush or whatever. But it's certainly been something in my recent times where it's been a bit of a revelation that actually, if I don't want to do that and I can get someone else to do it, that would be great.
That's perfect.
To the extent that for one of my clients, I put courses together and I get my daughter to do all the donkey work. she writes all the scripts for the videos and pulls all the action sheets together for me and creates the slides. All I do is record the videos and edit it all and put it online, and that's made my life so much easier.
That sounds perfect. Absolutely perfect, Joe.
The client does know that I'm outsourcing it to them.
It's all about playing to your strengths as well, isn't it? It's playing to you, what do you enjoy doing? If we've only got a certain amount of time that we can do what we do and also have a life as well, it makes sense to play to our strengths in terms of what we enjoy doing and what we don't enjoy doing. And someone else might love to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that begs the question, and I don't know what your answer is going to be for this. What about the idea of outsourcing your book?
Gosh, yes, you can. I think I don't do ghostwriting myself. I'm more likely to help people to develop their own writing. I think ghostwriting is great. It's there's something that happens when someone writes it themselves, though, and if they are struggling, and I work with clients who have English as a second language, who are severely dyslexic, and actually that's okay, because if you work with a really good editor, they'll help you to pull it together anyway.
Yes.
So I think ghostwriting is great if you want to go down that route, but everyone's different in terms of writing, and some people find it easier and some people don't.
No. And what about the concept of speaking your book? Do any of your people do that? I had
absolutely.
and that's how she wrote her book.
I was working with a client last week, the one that I met face to face, and he's going to be dictating most of his book. Or that's the plan. I've had clients who've handwritten their book and then typed it up. Something literally just before this podcast interview, I had an idea and I was speaking it into notes on my iPhone. So dictating's great. I love notes on the iPhone as well, actually. It's not brilliant, it's not as good as something like Dragon, but if you're trying to capture something that comes into your mind because you're inspired, it's really great just to be able to dictate it and just capture that information, because I knew I didn't have time to type it up. I was inspired by something, so I just recorded it. So things like that are useful.
Yes. Yeah. And so we talked a bit about sort of how you work in terms of with your clients and so on. What about the making sure you get done what you need to get done? You talked a bit about going away to write as an example for you. What about sort of the day? How do you organise that? Do you have a to-do list? Do you use pen and paper, as do most of my guests? How does that work?
I use my CRM, so my CRM keeps a to-do list on there. So and I can see it at a glance. I can see a week. I can literally, I need to do that next week, or I might have a monthly task, and I can just schedule it into it. So every day I look at my to-do list and go, okay, that's what I need to do today. I look at my calendar, see what appointments I've got in my diary. And there might be some days where I go, not a hope, I'm not going to get it all done, so I can move things around. So no, I'm not one to use pen and paper, although I do always, and I can see them out the corner of my eye, I always have a packet of post-it notes on my desk. But if I need to write something down that, if I'm not in the CRM and I need to remember something, I could just scribble it down and then come back to it later.
Yeah.
But that's typically how I manage my day. So I also do different things on different days. So Monday tends to be my admin day. So Mondays I will I might write my blog for the following week, schedule my newsletter for the following. I like to be a week ahead of these things normally. I might do some client stuff in terms of sending out maybe accountability emails, looking at things that people have sent me, and just really planning for my week tends to be Monday. And then I tend to do client-related meetings, Zoom calls, face-to-face meetings. I tend to do them sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday typically. Now, I can be quite flexible with this, but it's just that's how I like to plan my week. Before lockdown, I was at the gym probably 2 or 3 mornings a week. Now I make sure I get up and go for a walk first thing most days, apart from today because it was pouring down. And I did 2 walks yesterday, so I didn't feel quite so bad. But certainly getting up and getting some fresh air in the morning is what I prefer to do most days when I can anyway.
Mm-hmm. And other sort of energy building things for what you do? Walking is one of them, obviously. How else do you make sure that you've got energy to run your business?
Walking's definitely one. I'm not so good at moving away from the computer. I really do try. My osteopath keeps saying you should move away from the computer every half an hour, but I lose track of time and I forget to move and things like that. But just, walking around, going outside, getting some fresh air, making sure I go and put the kettle on occasionally and have a lunch break as well is quite important for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I manage my time, and I'm a great one. I love to travel as well. A few weeks ago I was in France. I had the opportunity to go to France for a few weeks, and that was kind of my ideal day, in as much as I would get up, I'd go for a walk around the village, I would, do some client work, around about 4 o'clock I'd look outside. If the sunshine was out, I'd go for a swim, and for me that would be like perfect. 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock I might have a beer in my hand, and it was just really relaxed kind of time.
Yeah.
But because I work with my clients and I love it, it doesn't really feel like work, because it's just what I enjoy doing every day.
Yes. Yeah. Lovely. Excellent. So what about learning and improving yourself? So it sounds like you've done that a bit for yourself through the process of writing your original book, and then building your business and writing sort of further books. What other ways have you involved? You talked about flying the plane before you
building the plane as you fly it.
Sorry, yeah. Which made me think about Lisa Sasevich, and I think we met through Bernadette Doyle's group, didn't we, originally? Was that where we?
Either Bernadette or Lucy Whittington. I'm not sure which.
Could have been Lucy. Yeah, could have been Lucy. And I went to Lisa Sasevich's event with Lucy, so I knew there was some connection to all of that. So, what sort of things are you doing to keep yourself learning and moving forwards?
I'm always working with a mentor or a coach at some level. So whether it's part of a membership group, a mastermind, or one-to-one with a coach, and that's something that's been important to me since I started out.
Yeah.
So learning from somebody, and also kind of modelling people. So my first book came about because I modelled the mindset behind a successful coaching business when I did my NLP Master Practitioner. So I love looking at what other people do, taking the best bits of what they do, and also how I could authentically bring them into what I do. So certainly I'm always looking at learning, because I walk most days. You'll normally find me with my headphones in, listening to a podcast. I might be listening to music, or I might be thinking about something, or I might just be in nature, but probably once or twice a week. I love listening to podcasts. I love reading as well. Don't get so much time for reading these days, because that really is more of a discipline, whereas putting headphones in and going out for a walk and just going, what do I fancy listening to today, is obviously something that's easier than sitting down for an hour, with a book or something like that.
Yes, and it's hard to walk and read, isn't it? I see
It is.
school, he's always got his head in the book, and I'm always worried he's going to step across a road or something at the wrong moment.
Yeah, and I'm not really an audio, although I recorded my last book on audio. I'm not really an audio person. I much prefer to have a physical book where I can sort of, put my post-it notes in it, and I can read it again and again and again. I'm quite a visual person, so I love listening to things, but I'm a visual person in terms of I like to look at show notes. I like to look at links. So I prefer to, if I listen to something, I can go back to it later and go, oh, what were they talking about?
Yeah.
Whereas listening to an audio book, I would find it quite hard, because what I like about podcasts is they're short, so half an hour. So I know that, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. It's 15 minutes long. I might get 2 podcasts in that time, or I do a podcast and I listen to music. Whereas I think an audiobook, it's hard to know when to sort of put the pause on.
Yeah,
in that respect.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't like listening to audiobooks, but I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's probably what you've just said. I think it's that. Firstly, it's that I always I read books by chapter, so I have to read to the end of the chapter in that session. So that doesn't work, as you say, when you're walking, because you don't know when the end of the chapter is going to come, do you? But on a podcast, you can tell, sort of thing. I suppose you can tell if you're looking at your Audible or whatever, anyway. But so yeah, much the same. But I think it is, as again, what you say, the looking things up and looking at show notes and actually taking action as a result of it that is missing when you listen to a book, I think. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So, last couple of questions. What about those days where things don't go well for you? You have a terrible day. What do you do to get through that?
Well, I think that's part of life, isn't it? And I think one of the things I've learned about being in business, that when you stick your head above the parapet, you're going to have people who don't like what you have to say. They might send you an email not liking something, or they might question you. And actually that's just, and I think I've learned, I don't have a particularly thick skin, but I've learned to have a thicker skin over the years. So I might talk it through with my husband, who's a fellow director of my company. I might go for a walk. I might have a glass of wine, who knows? But for me, it's just, I have to process things, and then I don't tend to dwell on things like I used to. I think I've got used to it over the years. And
Yeah.
if things go wrong, they go wrong. We always have those moments where you knock a glass of water over, or you do something that you're annoyed about. But I think if you dwell on it, life's too short to dwell on anything. For me, it's about processing it, just going, it's a learning experience, and then moving on to something else.
Yeah. So my last question is about your examples of living more. But before we start, I always ask my guests for questions that they'd like me to ask. And one of the questions you asked me to ask is about how coaches and consultants writing their own book can help them to live more. So before I ask you about what living more looks like for you, how will writing a book help people to live more?
I think it can help people to live more, because there's a few things that I teach on my programs. So the first principle is starting with the end in mind. So for me, this is about having a really clear view of, and an idea of your vision, what you want to create in your life, in your business. It's about writing something that's aligned to your business, and it's also about leverage, so how you can leverage what you do, and actually and helping them to live more. I think when people make that decision to write a book, they start to think more than just about writing the book. They start to think about their future, what they want it to look like, how the book fits into it. Does the book fit into more speaking engagements, a program they launch off the back of it? Do they need to shift their business in terms of do they need to do something slightly differently? So I think for me, there's a couple of things that happen here. Is they start to get, I think I've already mentioned this already, they start to get to know themselves on a deeper level, in as much as when they start to get their ideas out of their head, they get to see themselves as the expert, because they realize how much they know, or even how much their story and what they've been through has helped them and has taught them to be who they are today. But if they're really smart about it, it can lead to opportunities before they published it. There are two things I talk about in my Smart Author System program. One is self-validation, which is about getting feedback as you write your book, which raises your profile and potentially could bring you in some clients. And then also self-funding, how can you use your book to bring in an income as you write it? So that's really what I mean in terms of, helping them to live more by believing in themselves, by understanding what they know, but also being able to do something. If people are going to take a year, say, to write their book, they don't want to wait a year before they get the results. So for me, it's about how do you create results from making the decision to write your book now, and actually building your profile as you write it, and your expert status as well.
Yes, yeah, lovely.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And as you said, the bit you made the comment you made at the beginning about the sort of learning about yourself, the more you sort of dig into what you do and your motivations for doing it, sort of thing, how helpful that can be. I think that is so helpful for people, because often we do stuff and we don't really examine why, do we, or get really into that detail. So doing anything that forces us to do that is so helpful, isn't it?
Well, what we do on a day-to-day basis are the things that we find easy, and because we find them easy, we just dismiss them. But actually, the people who need help with them are the people who don't find them so easy. So I love planning. I know I'm really quite spatially. I love to help people to really see their book come alive with post-it notes, so they can see what's in each chapter. And I love doing that. But it's not for everybody. So so I'm going off at a tangent now. I'm not quite sure where I was going there, but
yeah. So
I'll let you bring everything back to the question you had in mind.
Well, it was about the living more, wasn't it? About how writing a book can help with that. And I think the more that you understand your own motivations and your own needs and all that sort of stuff, the more that you can craft your life to fit with that. So as I said, any of those things that you do, whether it be writing a book or a whole host of other things, like creating sort of vision boards or working out values for your life or whatever, any of that stuff, the more of that you do, the more likely you are to be able to live more, because you actually know what you want to do at the end of it. So many people,
absolutely,
when you ask them what they want to do on an ideal day, they don't really know, because they've never really had the time to do that sort of thing. So
definitely.
So to bring it back to you then, so your ideal day, you're living more, which is where you get to do more of the things that you want to do and less of the stuff that you don't want to do. What does that look like? You've already said it's probably going to be in France with a glass of wine at the end of it, but fill us in a bit.
Well, when I set up my business, I always wanted a business that I could run anywhere in the world, and I can. And I think that's what I love about it, is that I can be. My sister-in-law's got a place in France. I had the opportunity to stay in their gîte for a few weeks, and I could work, I could play. I could just really, balance my life, and that was lovely. But when we do the writer retreat in Spain, I always stay out there for a couple of weeks, and I do a bit of work, a bit of time on the beach, which is lovely as well. For me, with this online program, with the smart author system, I know I can make a bigger difference on a bigger scale. So my goal ultimately is to grow that and to build that. So that's something I'm working on at the moment, is to get that message out to more people, because I'm seeing more and more people want to write a book, and I want to help them, and I want to help them to do it in the best possible way.
Yes.
So that's really kind of my driver at the moment, is just to reach more people with it. For those who want to write a book, is to help them to write their best book in the best possible way, so they get the best results.
Brilliant. And that's a great segue into how can people find out more about you and get in touch, Karen?
You can find out more about me at I'm everywhere. Librotas.com, which is Librotas. Libro meaning book in Latin, and libertas meaning freedom. So that's kind of a key part of my life and my branding. So it's librotas.com. I'm on Twitter, Librotas, Facebook, Librotas, LinkedIn, Karen Williams, Librotas, and the same on Instagram as well. So come and find me. There's free masterclass, free get started workbook on my website. So please connect with me. And if I can help you with your book, please do let me know. I'd love to help you.
Lovely. Thanks, Karen. It's been great to have you back for a rematch, as it were. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you, Jo.
All this information is available in the show notes. If you go to powertolivemore.com/177, then you'll find them there. And this week I want to just briefly mention the idea of online programs, which is what we were talking about at Counterpoint Networking this week. We didn't actually spend that long talking about the programs in the end. We spent a lot of the meeting talking about a whole host of other things, as is the norm, although not normally for so long. But what we did discuss is how important online programs are potentially for us as home-based coaches and consultants, particularly in the current climate with the pandemic and many more people working from home and not in a position to go to live events or work face-to-face. And in fact, one of our members has an online program that she developed as much as anything else because of the fact that she can't run the sessions that she was running live anymore. And so some of her consideration around that was how to create training online that wasn't sort of as lengthy as it might have been had it been an offline session. The offline session might have been a full day in a training room somewhere, but you can't really do that online that easily. So her course started being live webinars that people came to and sort of went through a process in sort of 5 webinars, I think it was, but she's gradually developed it and added in workbooks and re-recorded it and thought very carefully about the length of the training to create the online program. Somebody else is in the process of creating hers and was talking about how she's looking to automate some of it. At the moment she's got it quite sort of manually administered as people sign up, and she was looking to do something more with that. We were talking about some of the platforms that you can use for online programs like Teachable and Thinkific, but there are various other options out there as well, and I certainly use my own WordPress site and LearnDash, which is a plugin that you can add to WordPress to turn it into a sort of course structure, if you like, and then I protect it using I can't remember what it's called, Paid Memberships Pro. But also with another client, I use Wishlist Member, which is a plugin that's been around for a good long while to protect content on WordPress. And so add that together with the LearnDash plugin, and that can give you some real flexibility. Other people use things like Kajabi, which is a platform where you can set up a whole program using their platform. It's quite costly, and obviously you need to sort of build that in when you're making your decision about what you're going to use. Fundamentally, how you deliver your program really comes down to who your customers are and what you need to deliver to them and what's going to work best for them based on what they're looking for, and also
obviously what you're delivering and what the topic is and how you need to work with them. And we talked about how you can have a mix of online training, downloads, and also live sort of sessions, either in groups or one-to-one, to back that up as well. So a whole host of different ways that you can use. And, you know, so many people over the last few months have taken what they were doing offline and brought it online and created a program around that so that they can continue trading and continue working with their clients in these strange times. So if you haven't got an online program, that might be something to think about. If you are looking for some help to think about it and then potentially to implement it, then that's something that I can help you with within my membership, which is Power to Live More Calm, and that effectively is an online program as well, albeit in the guise of a membership site. So if you're interested in finding out more, then just go to powertolivemore.com/get calm. And if you're interested in networking, we meet on Monday at 2:00 every week, British Summer Time. And next Monday, we're going to be talking about business challenges. So if you have any business challenges that you want to bring to the affair, then go to cantwitnetworking.co.uk and you can register there. If you're listening to this podcast later, then obviously we'll be on to a different topic, but we'll still be meeting. So, you know, please do pop along and join us. It's a very chatty, informal group, really focused on learning, sharing, and really getting to know the people that come to the sessions so that we can potentially help each other, get some sort of support and community, but also potentially refer each other to other people as those things crop up as well. So that's cantwitnetworking.co.uk. Again, the show notes are at powertolivemore.com/177, and we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.